Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Swinging from the Hip. I think I smell, so some of our regulars are busy. But joining us tonight is Paul. So to help me out and go through a few of the things that we're going to go through tonight, as I said, it's Paul. What's happened? Add him to the stream. That'll help. There we go. There he is. Hi, Paul.
Hello.
How you doing?
Not so bad. Not so bad. Alive. For my first day of work today.
So right. Yes. And an enjoyable day out.
Absolutely. Rearranging oil of Ulay on the supermarket's stand shelving. Brilliant.
I'm sure your hands are lovely and supple and soft. And somebody who will be joining us very shortly, which as soon as he gets in and logged in, is Arun. So we'll look forward to him joining us very shortly. But I suppose we're just gonna cover off a few things we're going to go over today. The big talking point that's been in cricket this last week. We'll go over that, and that was the obstruction in the field. But as I said, we'll come to that a bit later. We'll go over a few scoreboards in the meantime, and we just sort of start off with one that finished last night or the night before. I can't remember now. Everything's a blur. It's been so busy. But that's Afghanistan and Zimbabwe. Now, if you remember rightly, I'll take you back to the first test match. And Zimbabwe basically went and had a very easy victory over Afghanistan. It's a home match for Afghanistan, but it's been played in the UAE. The table's very much turned as this time Afghanistan with their first innings, and I'll bring that up on the old screen, and I'll share the old screen as I... Here we go. That's their first innings. That's a phenomenal effort from Afghanistan from their first test when they basically were bowled out cheaply in 2 innings, where they've got Ibrahim Zadran starts off nicely with a 72, and then but look in the middle, Hashmutullah Shahidi and Ashgar Afghan, massive partnership, 200 and 164 runs for each of them, and Afghanistan accumulating 545 for 4 declared. Obviously were basically in a very safe position there. And then to back it up, they go and roll, if I bring it up here, they roll Zimbabwe for 287 and they actually hit the follow on. So huge role reversal there from that first test, as I said. So there were some handy sort of contributions there from Zimbabwe, but nobody going on and really being the anchor that would have actually taken them out of the trouble that they were in during that test. 287, not terrible by any means, but when you've basically let Zimbabwe get over 500, you're going to have to go out there and score big, and nobody really anchored, as I said, and scored big. And therefore we had Zimbabwe roll for 287 and following on in their second for the second innings. And now, they actually come in. Yep, so come in, Paul.
Just it's become fashionable not to enforce the follow-on, hasn't it?
So it has. Unusual that they actually did enforce the follow-on. Afghanistan, I not really knowing the pitch conditions, so I can't really comment on what the conditions were like. It seems like when we look at that second innings from Zimbabwe, they were actually in quite a bit of trouble. They were only when I went to sleep. The game's played overnight, so to speak, bit of our time late in the evening, and then overnight. Zimbabwe was 7 down when only about 8 runs ahead. So the last 3 wickets, and we can see Donald Turipano with a 95. Obviously, with Sean Williams, who's got 151 not out, went and put a few runs together. So Afghanistan, who would have been looking at 3 wickets to get, maybe 30, 40 runs to get, actually were sort of like pushed back, were actually had to go chase a decent total. But coming back to your point, Paul, rather unusual in this modern day and age that they did decide to enforce the follow-on.
And I think also we need to point out, so for those of you who are listening to the podcast rather than actually watching the video, it's live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Don't forget you can listen to the recording on the podcast as well as you do your commute and stuff. You've got to remember that that 95 by Donald, that's with him batting at 9 in the order. So he really showed up a lot of everybody bar one ahead of him saying, guys, look, this is how you apply yourself. This is how you score. Because he didn't score very quickly, let's be honest. At a strike rate of 36, so only one run every or 2 runs and over.
Basically,
something like that. Yeah. So he was. Yeah. Look, this is how you apply yourself. This is how you play within the shots that you've got. It wasn't enough to save the game by any stretch. But but a great fist of it for the number 9.
Oh, look, I think in one thing, as someone who's been watching cricket and Test cricket for a very long time, and I'll just bring Aaron in as well since he's here. There we go. Look, there's Aaron. Say hi, everybody.
But hello, everybody.
One thing is that, I just don't feel that the batsmen knuckle down in Test matches like they need to at times. And here's Donald Turapano, who's basically, as you say, showing up the other batters. He's knuckled down and just basically dug into the trenches and stuck it out there. Sadly for him, 5 short of would have been a well-deserved century.
Absolutely, yeah, very true.
So basically, basically Sean Williams and Turapano having that partnership, it meant that Afghanistan will get there eventually, go through all the Test cricketing nations, but Afghanistan were left with 108 for victory. Started off with a bit of a shaky start, losing some wickets there, as you can see, 1 for 8, but then steadied the ship and got through comfortably enough in the end to square up the Test series.
And I mean, are Afghanistan the best side ever to have played Test cricket? They've only played 6 tests and they've won 3 of them. I mean, 50% record, that's pretty good going, isn't it?
I thought that's where you might be heading with that, and the fact that they were sort of how quick they won their first test and all sorts of things like that. So, yes, that's definitely a debate. Yes, are they? Yes. Well,
knowing one of the topics we're going to go on to later, I just thought I'd throw it in.
if we make it there.
Have they played a tier 1 nation yet?
Well,
they nearly did.
Test. They beat India. They played India.
Actually, we'd have to go back and have a look and see who they played. But unfortunately, due to COVID, their Test match series with Australia got cancelled. That was supposed to be last year, sometime off the top of my head, and was actually going to be played in Darwin as well, and would have been interesting. What we would call winter in Australia, if Darwin has a winter. But that's where it was going to be played. But unfortunately, because of COVID, it didn't get played. But as Paul's saying, so you think they've actually played India?
Their first Test match was against India. They've played Ireland, Bangladesh, and 2 against Zimbabwe. I'm trying to find what their 6th one is now.
Yeah, because they played that many that you can actually list them all.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there we go. A well-deserved victory there for Afghanistan in the end. And I guess I'm not sure. We'll go back to the top series. We've gone Afghanistan, Zimbabwe. We will see the next one. Fixtures going up is the first T20. So it was two Test matches. 2 Test matches. First one won by Zimbabwe, and the second one was won by Afghanistan, a drawn Test series. I think Afghanistan will take that as well. If we just double checking, yep, that's right. And the fixtures coming up, they've got 3 T20s starting, and the first one, what's going on here? Sorry about this, people. Get to fixtures. First one starting on the 17th of March in a couple of days' time. So we'll look forward to that one. And moving along, we'll get to the England versus India in the second T20 that they're playing out of 5. Another big turnaround. England quite easily winning that first T20 without losing too many wickets at all, chasing India's sub-par 120 odd. So, and then India able to turn the tables. You'd have to say England scored what you'd say was a competitive 164 for 6. So by no means an easy target for India to chase down, but they've done it with basically 2 overs to spare and only for the cost of 2 wickets, and one Virat Kohli making coming back with the bat. It's been a long time between drinks for Virat Kohli with the bat.
Yeah, I guess that happens when you have a kid. To sort of get additional pressures put on you outside of your playing structure. So, yeah, you just have to adopt. He's had to adopt to this new intervention in his life, hasn't he?
Or even adapt.
Yeah, adapt. Yeah.
It's interesting, it's actually you do see changes in performances from players when they've had major changes in their life. And it's just like to think if he is partaking in the waking up in the middle of the night and helping out, then surely it's got to have an impact. It's natural, isn't it? I mean, for normal Joe Bloggs going to work, it has an effect on you as you adjust. So you'd sort of think a normal sportsman's only human. It's got to have some sort of effect on them.
Yeah, having the nanny interrupt you in the middle of the night's going to have a lot of effect, isn't it?
Professional sports people have got to be have very selfish lifestyles, because everything has to be pointing towards them performing on the pitch or on the running track or whatever it is, and that means things like this. With their kids, their partners, their family will end up doing a lot of stuff for them to. I mean, even just as a before you're married, before you have a partner, you'll find parents obviously driving you around to games and stuff. The whole lifestyle, the whole family has to be centered around you performing well on that pitch, and it's going to take some time for that to, as you say, when a kid arrives, to readjust things so that it remains that way.
Yep, absolutely. So again, just with the scoreboard, bit of wobbles with Rahul going pretty early, sucking up 6 balls to get us 0. And but then Ishan Kishan obviously going well in a great partnership there with Virat Kohli to get things back on track. And if you look at Kishan's strike rate, a great strike rate, 175. And while I mention that, I'm just going to head back up, and we'll see. If we look at the English scoreboard, whilst there's some good contributions, the strike rate's not really getting up to that sort of 200 or the high 100s, which sort of like really means that you start to get into the 180, 190 region, even pushing towards 200. So that's where possibly they sort of like left it out on the pitch. The fact is they just need to get that strike rate up a bit higher earlier to get the extra runs on the board. And then basically, sorry.
That's all right. I was just saying, good to see that message coming in from one of our regulars on the show. Still at work. Good to see our ratepayer money being put to good use.
I missed that.
Oh, dear.
Taryn, he's still at work.
Arun, that stuff that's behind the scenes that the public can't see. So look.
You're looking at the wrong chat.
Simon, thank you very much for joining.
I was like, what are we looking at here? What are we looking at?
Okay, so those of you on YouTube, we do have a live chat in there. This is not what Aaron's talking about, but thank you, Simon, who's joined us on that one. And he's let us know that that's the other test match that Afghanistan have played with against West Indies. So they played West Indies and India. So 2 out of those 6 have been against what you would call tier 1, if there were tiers in Test cricket. Or against recognised test sides.
Recognised test sides, yeah, absolutely. So, and as I said, if it wasn't for COVID, they would have ended up playing Australia by now as well, which is now being talked about being rescheduled for later this year. So, it'll be interesting. Be a big steeper learning curve when they end up in Australia.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's to be fair, that's how you develop, right? You've got to experience the conditions now. Hopefully, they'll have a few T20s or one days around that as well, where they'll be more competitive. It'll be good. So hopefully, they have those before the Test match, so they've got
time to acclimatise.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because I know that originally there was like all the talk was around the Test matches in Darwin, so I'm not sure how many other T20s or ODIs they were going to play as well. Anywho, So basically, going back to the old fixtures. So the next one, another, I said 5 T20s for India and England being played. Where's it gone? Where's it gone? Where's it gone? There it is, right in front of me. So the next one coming up is also in a couple of days' time. And strangely enough, it's at the same ground where all the games are being played. And one thing I'm wondering is how long before the pitch is actually worn out.
Well,
Which
since
ground are
as
they
we've already seen all the members and stuff. We know that they're basically India have gone over it and turned it into a minefield of a pitch before they even played any games on it.
But that was the interesting thing, though. No, but that was the interesting thing, right? So we went through the test matches where it was actually obviously quite a dry pitch, let's call it. But
Yep.
then looking at this, particularly we won't look at the first ODI. In fact, first ODI was India that failed, and then England actually got it within about 15, with about 5 overs to spare, or nearly 5 overs to spare. In the second one, again, 160, what we'd call an average par score for a T20 match. So I don't know what's happened to the pitch. Obviously, it's quite different to the test match pitch of what they're playing the T20s on.
Yep.
Yeah,
But
with
what
all the
what
practice of the
round is it
IPL, they
they're
know how
playing
to
it?
produce a T20 pitch, don't they? Let's be honest.
Sorry, what's that? Sorry.
With all the
What-
practice of the
what
IPL,
field
they
are
know how to
playing
produce.
it? Oh, sorry.
With all the practice of the IPL, they know how to produce a T20 pitch.
Yeah,
That's true.
exactly. That's true. That's true. No, all the games have been played at all the test matches and the T20s and the ODIs all been played at the same ground.
Yeah, so it's that Ahmedabad, the new
Yeah,
stadium.
the new stadium. Yeah.
So they've got
yeah.
about 11 pitches in there in the middle.
Yeah. And it's funny because like when you see that, it's actually they've done it really well.
Oh,
It's actually not a circle; it's an oval, and so basically the ends create the circle part, and then depending on which pitch they use, they actually end up with a full circle for a playing ground, for a playing field.
Which means, unlike a lot of grounds where if you're playing on one of the edge pitches, you've got a short boundary. It means they have an even boundary. It does mean that if you're on an edge pitch and you're sat on the far side, you're a long way from the pitch as a spectator.
Yeah. This is like bring the binoculars. That's why they're only putting spectators by the looks of it on one side of the ground. Because apparently, so they're getting crowds of about 60,000 into the stadium. But apparently the stadium holds something like about 110 or 120,000.
I think it's 120,000.
Yeah, 120. So but because of I can't think of the word, COVID and spacing, it's only 60,000.
Only.
Yeah. Hey, that's nothing. You know, that's just a minuscule of the population.
Not true, but you got to say that must be, even with COVID protocols, that those are clearly the biggest crowds anywhere globally for these games.
Good point. Absolutely.
Yeah,
that'd be true.
Yeah,
that would be absolutely true. Try and think of a sport where you're getting bigger than 60,000 turning up to the ground at the moment. I don't think you'll find anything anywhere.
Don't think so.
No, bigger than Eden Park.
Maybe
hang on. They did get. They reckon they estimated 50 to 60,000 down at the viaduct for the America's Cup.
Maybe tomorrow.
Was that yesterday when the wind and they had to cancel it?
Yeah. Sunday, yes. Anyway, moving along, we're going to move on to the. Actually, we're going to go and look at the latest Sri Lanka West Indies game, and then we'll talk about the controversial moment of the week as well. So we'll bring that back up on screen there. Get rid of those ugly mugs, and there we go. Not a bad game, you'd have to say, when you've got Sri Lanka managed to get 274 for 6 off their 50 overs, and West Indies chasing it down, you'd say comfortably enough with 9 balls remaining. Looks like no controversies this game either.
No.
So a lot of comment on that one.
No, haven't seen that one. When was that played?
That was actually played overnight, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yep, overnight that was played. So Yeah, I think what Sri Lanka's struggling with, I mean, well, let's look at the scorecard. You're getting quite low down in the order with De Silva scoring 80 towards the tail end at a great strike rate, you'd have to say, for an ODI, and considering being down probably 6 wickets sort of thing. So, yeah, look, they were a 6 for 151 at one stage. So a good partnership there by Ashwin Bandara and PWH De Silva. To see them through from 151 for 6 at one stage through to 274 for 6 and putting up somewhat of a competitive total for their bowlers to bowl at. Yep. And then we can see that basically Dwayne Bravo anchored the innings there for West Indies, and seeing them through, as I say, to the total of 276 with basically an over and a bit to spare. So, yeah, sort of a comfortable victory for the West Indies. I think Sri Lanka, as I was about to say, really needing their batsmen to sort of fire a bit more. They've been getting starts and either getting sawn off by the umpires or by their own undoing. So really something that the Sri Lankans are going to have to basically pull finger on is around their batting, because I think within their bowling, they've got enough bowling strike power to be able to cause some trouble to the West Indies if they could put some scoreboard pressure on with the runs on the board. But coming to that controversy, don't know if everybody's seen it, and the guys that'll be listening on the podcast, unfortunately, you won't be able to see this, but I'll just play you the incident and I'll talk you through it. So basically, the batsman's played the ball. It's gone down at his feet, not too far from it, and the non-striker's going like a bat out of hell to take a single. And the striker decides no, calls no, and starts to back into his crease. Unwittingly, while he's doing that, he actually ends up kicking the ball back towards away from the fielder, which is the bowler, coming to try and run him out. So we can see it here. The batsman, he does look down. He does see the ball, but I think it's quite clear he's not really intentionally interfering with the ball. So that's what's basically happened. The West Indies appeal. The umpires decide to go upstairs. The soft signal, which is the crucial part here, the soft signal is out, and the TMO backs up the soft signal by saying, yep, that the batsman is out obstructing the field. Have you seen the incident? Or you have now, hopefully. You saw it there. Yeah, you saw it there. What are our thoughts?
Well, first off, folks, if you haven't seen it, I want to watch it again. We do have it in our Swinging from the Hip supporters Facebook group, so you can go and look at it over there. In that one, look, it's a rare one, isn't it? I can't remember the last time I've seen someone out or heard about someone being out from obstructing the field. So it's a very rare one there. He sort of comes forward not looking like he knows where the ball really is.
That's right.
And then as he retreats, he is stopping the bowler from getting out the ball, but it doesn't look intentional. But then again, I don't know. Does the law mention anything about intent?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like Paul said, he plays the shot. He doesn't know where the ball's gone. He comes down the pitch because maybe there's a run in it. He's backing, and then there's a no from his mate down the other end. So he's backing up. He may be looking down, but he still didn't really know, I don't think, where the ball was. He could have easily stood on it, probably moving back as well.
Rolled an ankle.
Yeah, but he just, so, I mean, the option, the umpires gave it out. The soft signal was out. The TV umpire backed it up. But does the opposition captain have the right to call the batsman back as well? To say,
well, the opposition skipper, the opposition captain is the one that's appealed.
Yeah.
So he's the one that's asking the umpire. So there's not much chance of him asking him to come back. I just think this is a horrible hometown decision. And that's all it was. It was a hometown decision. It was poor officiating. it is quite clear in the laws of cricket that the obstruction has to be intentional, and really to say that that was intentional is a pretty long bow to draw there.
Yeah, I did see there was an appeal in that during the Indo-Kiwi semi-finals. There was an appeal for obstruction as the batsman's running to make his ground. The ball's thrown, it hits him on the back, preventing a run out. Now, then the umpire said, "No, look, he's just doing he's just running his run. He hasn't deliberately blocked that ball, therefore it's not out." So there you go. Auckland cricket has better umpires than the West Indies.
Was that the umpire that the team said that couldn't see properly and needed his eyes checked?
No, the different one, that one, the other one.
No, but that's actually a really good example, because actually you can run a line to between the ball being thrown and the stumps, as long as it's a straight line. So you can actually take that line and know intentionally that you are block or making it difficult for the ball to get to the stumps. So you can take that line. What you can't do is then deviate multiple times to make sure that you change that you are blocking that line. So if you know that, let's say the wicket keeper is going to throw to the bowler's end, you can sort of run a line straight down the pitch. You'll get told off for running down the pitch, but you can run down the pitch as long as you don't then swerve because the wicket keeper's throwing it to the bowler who's off to the side a bit. So there is an element of the you can do a bit of offensive blocking.
Yep.
But
it's like that other sport we follow, isn't it? You can't change directions.
But you can't change direction, actually, and you can't intentionally go out of your way to what was assumed here, kick the ball, which was no way that he's done that.
No, but it was interesting showing that incident, because watching the highlights of the India-England T20, Washington Sundar was bowling, and I can't remember the English batsman who was at the striker's end, but he hits the ball basically in the air back towards the bowler. Johnny Bairstow, who was the non-striker, gets in the way. The ball hits his helmet, and Washington Sundar turns around and looks at the umpire, and he got himself and had a little tanty with old Bairstow, but the umpire straight away just said no, right?
Yep.
Then walked away. Because basically Washington was saying, well, no, he's stopping me from catching the ball, which when you look at the replays, he probably would have caught it if Bairstow hadn't stuck his helmet in the way.
But he was taking a defensive action, basically, by the sounds of it. If it's coming back, he's just like your arms and everything just basically go in every direction, trying to the ball's coming at me.
Yeah, like you say, it was evasive action.
Evasive action was the word I was looking for.
He would have dropped to the ground if the ball's coming at you at head height, not try to, dodge it.
And I don't think there's too many cricketers out there that are going to be using the head.
That's removed for HIA. Go off.
Yes,
that's what I was wondering. So does he have? Does the physio come on and give him an HIA test because he's got hit now?
Technically, yes, he should have been. Anytime. I mean, we've seen it often enough locally, actually, when we've seen some cricket on TV. Every time the player gets struck on the head, I think the protocol is that they need to be checked. So even if it's a slight tap, I believe the physio still runs out there and has a chat, and it's an opportunity for the non-striker or the person who hasn't been hit in the head to have a drink of water.
Yeah, and have a chit chat about what they're going to do next.
Yeah, exactly.
How much water do sportsmen need to drink? By the way, every single time there's any break in play, run on water. They don't need that much water. They're not getting dehydrated.
That's so true. It doesn't matter what sport it is these days, is it? As soon as there's a break in play, you get like about 60,000 people coming in onto the ground bringing bottles of water out, and it's just
that just makes me giggle. So during the remember we had an issue at the Indo-Kiwis, the semi-final with when the team running out the water bowls every 3 overs. Disgusting. And one square leg umpire was said to be getting quite angry at the team. And then the said match referee, tournament referee, had to intervene.
Community cricket cricket at its best. Actually,
Yeah.
look, I suppose we've covered off the old, you know, what happened in that controversy in the West Indies. I think, you know, it's interesting when I went onto social media. It's frustrating because there's people that just don't know what the law is, and they go off and say, "Oh no, he stopped the fielder from you know trying to get the non-striker out because there was an opportunity the non-striker had gone a long way down the pitch." But they just don't know what the law is. At the end of the day, it has to be intentional obstruction of the field, and that was nowhere near intentional obstruction of the field. So I think we're all in agreement that they got it horribly wrong in that instance. And
Well, it's
not,
basically the spirit of cricket. It's like with the bowler running out the non-striker, you know, when he's coming in to bowl. You know, I've seen that a few times. You know, now, yes, it's in the
we'll
laws.
have an argument
The
about that one
you
because
can do it.
yeah,
But
but
is it
the
in
thing
this,
is that I actually agree with it.
you know,
I actually think that
yeah,
the bowler
but
should be able to run him
it's
out.
not so much, yeah, but there's like, does the bowler, you know, do you give him one warning at least before you do it?
Yeah,
Or you
absolutely,
just do
absolutely.
it?
You know, one warning. You give him one warning and saying, "Hey, look, you better stay back there, mate. Otherwise, next time I will take the bails off."
But you don't
I
have,
think
so you have the
one warning.
occasions, no
Sorry.
warning. So
Yep.
we've had in club cricket where the bowler doesn't warn them, runs them out, and then as the umpire, what do you got to do?
Yeah. I as an umpire, I would be going over to the captain and saying, "Hey, look, yep, that's fair enough. You're within your rights to take the wicket, but in the spirit of cricket, I suggest that you call the batsman back and give him a warning, and then it's
Yeah,
up to the captain. You know, it's the phrase that it's the wording that you use, right? Is the fact is that you basically telling the captain what he needs to do without telling him what he needs to do. At the end of the day, he
yeah.
could still turn around and say, "Nah, I give you the middle finger," but I think you'd be, yeah. I think if you coach it right, you'll get the right outcome out of it.
And if the captain's got
Yeah,
any
it doesn't work
if you
in
want any
player
LBW
umpires
to go
in
his way,
one-day cricket.
You guys are on fire tonight.
Oh, stop it. See, Aaron's either not talking at all and going silent during your, or he's talking at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, if any captain that doesn't take the umpire's advice better not appeal for any LBWs.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're all going to go against
That's
us
a good
from there
point.
onward.
That's a very good point. Is this like, yeah, you want some decisions going in your favor?
Yeah. Again, that works when you've got neutral umpires, but if you've got player umpires,
Oh well, that's never going to work in the player umpires because
yeah,
absolutely, because you've got your own. You're the umpire for your batter. So
yeah.
yeah. So yeah. Well.
Hence
Anywho.
that's a trip to the disciplinary committee because there's going to be a few stumps and bats flying around.
Well, we'll leave that to the disciplinary committee. Look, why don't you go over? So on the weekend, as Paul a couple of weeks ago, unfortunately couldn't make it this week, went along to the Indo-Kiwi T20 tournament that was being held over multiple weekends up here in Auckland. That concluded this Sunday with the final at Keith Hay Park in Mount Roskill in Auckland. And Aaron, why don't you sort of just go through tell us what actually happened in that local community tournament?
Oh,
if you can remember.
From about the time we did arrive, I think I got there. The game started around 4 o'clock, but we got there around 4:30, prior commitments and all. But the game was between the Young Fighters and the Kerala Warriors. I think I'm not sure who won the toss in that, but the Young Fighters batted first and they scored 106. From their 20 overs. Again, we didn't see that inning, so I don't know exactly what happened in it. But obviously, the pressure of the final got to the Young Fighters. So a little bit of a disappointing score there in 106. But hey, at least there's runs on the board. But unfortunately, against the Kerala Warriors, who were on fire, they'd already played a couple other games that during the day because they were partaking in another tournament. They chased it down quite easily. I think it was in the end maybe the loss of 2 wickets or 3. So yeah, the Kerala Warriors went on and took out the tournament this season. So congratulations to the Kerala Warriors. Well played.
Yeah, no.
Look forward to next, and we all look forward to next season. Hopefully, without the COVID interruptions and that. So yeah,
We'll all have our vaccinations by then, so we'll be sweet to go.
yeah,
So,
and we're
yes.
elite sportsmen, so we get to go first.
Yeah, elite sportsman. And cricketers at that. So,
Yeah,
cricketers will be at
that.
the top of the list as well.
It's not the IPL, but it is a similar tournament.
Hey, just sorry, Paul,
quite a few players might get them on age ground, but not on being not being elite sportsmen.
Hey, we won't quibble on how it comes about.
Yeah, come on, Paul,
whatever way you get it, whatever way you get it. Actually, one of the things that was actually great at the final is that I think predominantly the Kerala Warriors, they got quite a little fan group that turned up to cheer them on, and with the drums and that going while the game was going on, it was actually created quite a nice little atmosphere there for the game, and then for the prize giving afterwards too, which was quite nice.
Yeah, it was. They're just great. I think that maybe, as I said, there is the KPL league, which they're all the Kerala people are all playing in, and that so they had quite a substantial amount of spectators support there. Like Ashwin said, maybe about 50, 60 people there, mixture of
the drums.
The children and the wives and mates, and the drums were there, so that was great. Obviously, we had the Indo-Kiwi committee there in full force, sitting on the bank with their chili bins, and we don't partaking in some format or in some way in support. I'm not sure how, but yeah. Look, maybe some of the larger cricketing provinces could learn a thing or two about how to get crowds along and support support, especially with the and the passion that they showed in supporting their team.
Actually, one of the things we talked about, I think, when the quarterfinals, semi-finals that day is like there's a lot of passion out there in those ethnic communities running their own tournaments and the like. I mean, there's probably, I don't know how many T20 tournaments would there be, like ethnic T20 tournaments would there be in Auckland alone?
Look, I think I know, like at the moment, over the next couple of weeks, there's 2 tournaments definitely running. There's be another one that comes later in the year, I think, which Paul has been invited to cover, the APL. But there's other, there have been other tournaments on Sundays as well. There's not the normal cricket, T20. There's the tape ball tournament and that as well. So yeah, look, there's just
you're talking
amount, and some of the prize money on these tournaments, little tournaments. I think the biggest prize money amount I've heard is about $6,000. So look, there's, as I say, there's money out there in some of these communities. Whether the guys sitting in their little offices at Eden Park or down in wherever they're sitting in Newmarket these days. New Zealand cricket. So I think they've got to look into how they can get more involvement and participation from these guys.
Well, it's not just that. I think it's what they need to do is like, I think they need to engage with those groups basically. It's like, how do you get them, like I don't think they'll move away from running their ethnic competitions. They like those little competitions. They love them, and they really are fantastic little competitions that they run for the groups. And there's, they're not hit and giggle. They're actually they take them quite seriously, but the passion's there. And what they need to learn is how can they grab that passion and bring it into supporting levels of cricket within New Zealand.
So there's at least I know at least 4. I mean, that's what I'm not involved in the in the community up there. But I know of at least 4 different T20 competitions up there that are ethnic community based. But you said they're little. We're talking 16 plus teams, right? For a lot of these, they generally have good umpires. We're talking proper pitches. Some of the and mainly on artificial, admittedly. But if you're trying to do a round robin with groups of 16, or even if they're in pools, it's not. These aren't little tournaments by that sort of stretch, by that sort of form.
No, there isn't. No, I mean,
you've got players in here who are ex-internationals, who are currently currently age grade reps at national level, not just state level. These are, so when you say some of these teams, you say take them very seriously. Some of the teams I think take them. It is more of a get the family and mates together to play, but other teams take it seriously and get to the sharp end. So these are serious competitions.
It is, and like you say, these guys, some of these teams do take it serious, very seriously. Guys coming in from Tauranga, Hamilton, up north, or even from Wellington and Christchurch. So it's they're very serious. And I mean, like with the Indo-Kiwi tournament, which I'm fortunate to be involved with. As far as this season goes, we had 24 teams applied to play in the tournament. It's just that we can only
cater to
cope with 16 at the moment because of the ground situation. Plus if you look at 20, you need another few more teams on top of that 24 just to get the pools, the amount of teams and everything, so it can work out properly. But it's the main issue at the end of the day comes down to grounds. You need to be able to access the grounds, and while the higher beings say they want to support and help you, when you go there and ask them for support, there's
they go missing.
What they say, what is done is very different.
But you flip that and you compare that to, cricket clubs in Auckland. Are they getting out second, third, fourth teams, or are they just managing to get out their first team? And you're like, well, look, guys, we know there are plenty of players around who want to play cricket because they're playing their own competitions. You're just not organising your competitions and running your clubs in a way that is accessible or inviting.
Accessible.
But a lot of these guys, they don't want to be. Some of the guys in these teams, the community tournaments, those guys are actually, they're whatever business they're in or work they're in, they can't commit to the full season or the full day. So, you've got some guys coming in just playing in these tournaments who are highly talented young, talented players that some of the, you're missing out on. That's what you have in your club scene is not the only talent lying around out there. There is a lot more talent, and isn't it beneficial to the cricket as a whole if somehow all that, you can work out a method or a way to get everyone involved?
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think we're
freezing over there.
And I mean, Aaron and I went into this a little bit in our For Your Ears Only show last week. So become a supporter of New Zealand Sport Radio, and you can go have a listen to that about a bit about how to engage people. But there's definitely a whole section of the society who want to play sport, and it's not just cricket, but other sports as well, in a less structured way, but want to have access to it and to play semi-serious, but just not necessarily for that. For that, I mean, same with volleyball at the moment. If you just want to go down the park and throw a net up and play volleyball, if you go down to Mission Bay on the weekend, you'll see plenty of people doing that. Are they engaged with Netball New Zealand? No. And those associations need to find how to engage that the casual sports player.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, I mean, no, just try to quickly wrap it up. But I mean, in cricket, it's not a cheap sport. With some of these clubs, some of the guys that are playing the 2-day stuff and that, the senior 2-day stuff, Prems and that, they're paying over $300, $320 each to be in that for the season. And I mean that's just club fees. You got to add in the most of those players have their own equipment. Bats, pads, thigh pads, helmets, blah 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 blah. So
It's like actually
it's not a
just
cheap
on that
sport.
point. You just on that point. I was at when I was on the junior committee at the Eden Roskell Cricket Club, and I was just taking. I was in the nets with my son, and there was a family next door that basically were trying to play cricket, but the dad was bringing his two twin boys. They were about 10, 11 years old, and but they were enjoying what they were doing, and one was good, one wasn't so good, but they were both having fun. And so I went, saw them, said hi as you do, and then went back next week, and they're there again. And the interesting thing was the fact that so I sort of say, hey, well, do you boys want to play cricket? There's a club over there, join up, and yada yada yada. So they couldn't afford the fees. This is like we have no money, we can't afford to join a cricket club. And so I said, no, don't worry about that, we'll sort it out. But then it's basically it wasn't just the fees then, right? It's the gear as well, because the boys were old enough that they're going to be playing hardball, so they need to have their own helmets. So it's like, and that's sort of like, oh crap!
Sorry.
It's like, okay, so
You've got to have your own helmet. You can't share helmets.
can't share
No.
helmets, health and safety.
Health and safety. That's Paul. That's
Kutus, man.
kudos.
So, but anyway,
Vanilla
look,
kudos.
at the end of the day, it was great because I mean, like, the problem is that I think the clubs can help people that can't afford to come into the game, but people were going to think, oh look, I need to buy this, I need to buy this, I need to buy this, and then there's the fees, and it's just like, so really, it's a lack of marketing in the sense of, hey, look, come and talk to your club if your kids are keen, they want to play cricket, we will help you make it happen. And that's why there's something missing, because not, as Aaron just alluded to, it's not actually a cheap sport. And if you're not getting help to fund lower socioeconomic groups to come into the sport, it's just going to be an elite sport.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how much did you spend on a bat this season, and how much did we spend on a bat this season?
Absolutely, it's just like
and they were
a
discounted.
a discounted junior bat, $150. It's just like
A senior bat, $480 odd.
that's this. By the way, that's discounted.
That's
480 discounted. And here's the other thing: when Aaron played, although he went fine league to fine league, when I played cricket, I bought a cricket bat. It lasted me pretty much my career as a cricket player, from basically when I was early 20s to my 30s. I've still got the bat. The bats these days last 3 seasons if you're lucky, 3-4 seasons if you're lucky. Yeah, so they're not made to last.
Those last few seasons before Pernille retired and made his comeback again, I think I was buying a bat a season, and we're buying a bat a season at $500 a piece.
That was before you're getting discounted bats.
That wasn't even discounted.
No, those were not discounted bats.
Yeah.
So it is
Anyway.
a cost prohibitive sport, and I think there needs to be, we're talking about how, it's interesting because really all we're talking about when we talk about the T20 competitions is community. When we're talking about this is community. This is about how the hell do you get to all the community and make it a game that all the community can play. Now, I'll take another sport, and this is like, winter season. You've got 2 major sports in winter: rugby and soccer. Okay. Rugby is actually a cheap sport to get involved in. Soccer ain't. Soccer's actually a very expensive sport to get into. You're paying north of $100 to join most clubs, plus your strip. Rugby, you're paying around $50 to $70, and your strip's included. You'll get the jerseys from the club and the like. So that's where I think we obviously have we like to sort of say how rugby is doing things, the administration of rugby is doing things wrong. That's one thing that they are doing right. They keep their entry level cost are going into rugby very low, and they look after you as well in terms of the jerseys and the playing strip. You don't have to buy your own socks and your own shorts, but the jerseys, so to speak, are taken care of, and everything else. So yeah, whereas like I'm talking to my friends, their son's playing soccer, $150 plus the playing strip, which you have to buy through the club because then they're making money on selling the strip to you as well. So not a cheap entry level sport, that one. So yeah, I think it's
You think in rugby, obviously you need gum shields and stuff, whereas football, all you need is someone to bring a ball along and a couple of jerseys. So in theory, it should be the cheapest sport in the world, which is why it's so popular in so many countries, because it is the real entry level to football is very, very low.
I don't
Anyway,
know.
I thought we were talking cricket.
Well, yeah. I think we're just alluding to the fact is that there needs to be across the board more fingers going into the community in terms of how they you talk. I mean, like I was at a board meeting and talking about our kids sitting around on devices. We've got to get them more active. And I think that's actually, as a community, we need to do that as well. We need to get more kids involved in sport to get them more active. And the way, doesn't matter if it's cricket, rugby, soccer, whatever it is, it needs to be accessible. And it's not.
What was that on
everybody.
the news? Sorry, what was that on the news today about type 2 diabetes? They expect a 90% increase in the next 20 years of the people getting type 2 diabetes.
Right. I think you sort of think we're looking, lots of groups asking government to throw money at them. I think you want to help kids out, throw money at community sports so that people with lower socioeconomic groups can get involved because they can't afford to otherwise. That's the way to go. It's just like, and I think anyway, as I said, we'll move on to some, and I think, I mean, I was wondering there for a moment. I thought, geez, we're going to run out of topics too. I was just like, holy crap! We digress, but we digress. Yes, as Simon says, cricket capitalism, buy multiple bats in a year. Taz will be happy.
Thank you, Simon.
Hey, look, one thing I wanted to talk to, and it's like this popped into my head during the week, and I was just sort of thinking, New Zealand would have to be overall the best cricketing nation currently in the world.
Oh, I'm ready for this.
Yep, he's ready for this. He's probably got stats.
I have.
He's got stats, but it's okay. Oh no, okay. At the end of the day, when we look at it, we got passion, exactly. But when we look at it, he can talk about stats and all that. But at the end of the day, reality is that the Black Caps have made it to the ODI final. They made it to the Test Match Championship final, and they're basically fifth on the T20 table. But they've just beaten the second place T20 side. So when you take cricket as a whole, not the individual ones, but cricket as a whole, if you sort of gave points based on that, you'd have to say New Zealand would have to be the best cricketing nation currently. I'm not saying forever and all time, but currently across all formats, the best cricketing nation that there is.
Per capita player.
Per capita as well.
Oh, well, look. Look.
We always got to put per capita in.
Batting above their weight, absolutely. There's no two ways about it. That's you've got to say New Zealand with only 5 million people is clearly, when you look at the Test Championship with India with 1 billion, Australia and England and Pakistan is pretty populous as well, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, they are clearly above the weight. But so in the Test rankings, New Zealand are number 2. In the ODI rankings, they're number 3. And in the T20 rankings are number 5. So 2, 3, and 5. Whereas if you compare that to India, for example, who are the number 1 ranked Test team, the number 2 ranked ODI team and the number 2 ranked T20 team, and England, who are number 1 in T20, number 1 in ODI, and number 4 in Test. Look, you've got to say those two overall are better at the moment.
I'm gonna take the South African rugby viewpoint on this one, Paul, and you'll be aware of this. It's like gone to finals. What's this table stuff? Gone to finals, and it's just like at the big dance.
Didn't we beat India in the last series in New Zealand? Didn't we beat England in the last series in New Zealand? Sorry, so number 1. What does that mean?
Exactly. We're actually on the field. We're actually toppling these number 1 teams, so to speak.
No, I mean, as Arun says, at home you've beaten a couple of good teams. At home,
it's not. To be fair, it's not a Minnows' fault that the top guns don't want to play them. Because they bring the revenue in.
We don't do the draw.
We don't do the draw, exactly. It's like when we look at Australia, why Australia doesn't want to play New Zealand. After we beat them in the T20s, we can see why. But but it's like it's been a complaint of the your Sri Lankas, New Zealand, West Indies, etc. Is that and South Africa, in fact, is that your Australias, Englands, and Indias keep playing amongst themselves, and there's a lack of scheduled matches with them and the rest of the for want of the term, as we talked about before, tier 1 nations. So look, you can only play what's scheduled in front of you, and if the BCCI says this is who's playing who, then that's all you can do.
True, no, absolutely. Yeah, you're right there. But that's a good point. Is how much how often, how frequently do different teams play each other? I mean, now it's probably got slightly better now than it used to be, when essentially England would during their winter would just go to Australia, play 5 Test matches, another 7 one-day internationals, maybe a couple of T20s, then go home and not play anybody else. Now that length of series has, I think, it looks like it's reduced. It doesn't exist.
It's reduced. It's not gone, but it's reduced. Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's one of the problems you've got, is you're trying to play 3 formats with the same, or play 3 sports effectively with the same players. So you're not going to be able to play lots of different countries if you're trying to play 3 different formats, because there just isn't the time of the year to do it. You've only got 52 weekends. There
was also a period there. I think it seems to have died down a little bit. But it's just like, the Ashes were every 4 years. Mm-hmm. Now they're every 2 years.
Yep.
Right. Yep. And sort of like, so they've actually, and in fact, I think a few years ago, it felt like Australia was playing England every year almost. So I think it did happen, but they've sort of pared that back a little bit. And it's simply, you understand it from their viewpoint as well, because they just make such big dollars out of it. That's what they want to do. But it means that there's less competition.
True, but it's again, I'm going to blame IPL, because that's what turned me off from cricket in the first place. But with IPL and with the money that the BCCI has now,
and control,
and control, but the only way England and Australia can try and sort of maintain some control of their own players is by earning megabucks, because otherwise it's going to get outspent by the IPL, and they just never see their own players. And it's already at the stage where no tournament dare run at the same time as the IPL. Everybody has to basically take a break for the IPL.
That's right.
So the only way that that England and Australia can try and hold on to their players and have some control is by playing the big dollar or the big pound matches as often as possible, to try and get somewhere near the same cash as BCCI. And as you say, that led to them overplaying the Ashes, which reduces its worth, which backfires in the end, because people get bored of just seeing the same thing over and over and over. And they took the wrong approach to that, the answer has to be what we're kind of getting to now, I think, which is the IPL has its own window because it's just too rich. and then everyone tries to fit around it and tries to get a little bit more balanced in who they play.
Well, effectively, the only ones that do get to they have the dollars to be able to pull their players out of the IPL if they have a clash is England and Australia. No other country has the ability, and a good example of that is New Zealand when they play the 2 tests against England. Will most likely not have their IPL representatives playing in the test unless they're out of the IPL tournament, because the finals, the quarterfinals, semi-finals, all that will be going on when those on. So if the IPL teams are out, they'll be there. If they're not out, they'll be in the IPL. So it's again the minnows in terms of dollars are missing out on their players. It's just the ones that can afford to pull the players out.
When you say minnows, it's basically pretty much everybody except India,
England,
New Zealand, and England, right? It's three countries that can
afford it,
and everyone else can't. But when we're talking about playing other teams, you've got 12 test teams. If every test team was to play everyone else, that would take up 11 weekends, or at least as a minimum kind of thing. You've then got yourself 20 ODI teams and 85 T20s. Now, I agree. Look, outside the top sort of 12 or so, you don't really, for the T20s, they're not going to play your England and Indias. But there's just too much cricket to try and jam in.
But just on the test matches, though, Paul, because that's. I mean, I think in terms of what they did, they need to bring the test matches are actually starting to come back in vogue. People are actually really wanting to watch test matches. And when you look at the test match championships, test championship, it's a 4-year cycle, I believe, off the top of my head. So basically what you're trying to do is make sure that everybody has a series against everybody else, home and away, in a 4-year cycle. And that's, again, you're talking about the top 12 of that, probably top 8 countries.
Well, yeah, there's only 12 test countries anyway. So the test championship table, for example, if you look at that, England played 49 matches across that 4-year period, which India was second with 37. So England played 12 more test matches than anybody else. So clearly England likes test matches. Everyone else, you get down to Ireland with just 2. But if you talk about sort of serious ones, in Bangladesh had 20, West Indies 28, which is, you're looking at being what? So that's looking at 21 to 29 less than England. I mean, England played twice as many test matches than Bangladesh during that period. One of the
they still can't get in the final.
But how can you expect to I mean, one of the things we bemoan is batsmen not knowing how to apply themselves. If you're only doing it 5 times a year, how are you going to learn how to apply yourself when you're spending the rest of the other 47 weekends of the year
playing T20s,
playing T20s, and the occasional one-day international, or one-day cricket.
One-day cricket, and trying to hit the ball out of the stadium. That's all you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Look, absolutely, you're not wrong there at all. It's basically that's the issue. Is like I think they've watered down the test, the value of the test, and they've shot themselves in the foot because, as we just said before, more and more people are actually getting into Test cricket and enjoying Test cricket far more than ODI. ODI seem to be basically a ghost of what they used to be, and T20, everybody thinks it's sort of shits and giggles.
So, quiz time for you, boys.
Oh, here we go. Fail.
I've already told you that England have played the most test matches at 49 and that India are second with 37. Who do you think has played the 3rd most test matches in the last 4 years, according to the ICC Test Championship table?
I mean, logically speaking, I would go Australia, but I'm guessing that's not the answer.
No.
Australia played 31.
I think it's...
What's that?
Is it us?
Australia played 31. New Zealand have played 27.
Okay, so who was 3rd?
Sri Lanka have played 33 test matches. That surprises me that Sri Lanka are up there.
Yeah,
with that one.
It'd be interesting to see a split of how much home versus away that is, and whether their board is basically quite amenable to requests from countries to say, "Hey, come and play," and they go, "Okay," because it's
No
like,
worries,
well, they're
we're
gonna,
here.
yeah, we're there, yeah. Oh, we're there. You're here already.
Yeah.
There we go. So it was England, India, and then Sri Lanka.
Yep. Then Australia. Yep.
Then Australia.
Australia.
Right.
The greatest test playing nation in the world.
Actually, I'll leave this one for next week. I'll leave this one for next week. As the fact is that we'll talk about the nicest players in Test cricket, which has just popped up this week. So we'll leave that one for next week, shall we?
Yeah. Nicest playing team.
Well, I suppose we'll wrap it up there, guys.
Did you cover off the Plunkett Shield?
Not really.
That's 1 day stuff. Who cares? We just said 1 day stuff is dying out.
Plunkett Shield's the 4-day first class cricket.
No, that's 4 day stuff.
So the Ford Trophy is the 1 day stuff, isn't it?
Yep, that's right.
We haven't got time for Plunkett Shield.
No, we've run out of time.
I haven't got time.
We talked about community cricket. We jumped from Plunkett from that international to community cricket, and we sucked up a lot of time there.
Yep.
Alrighty, guys. Hey, thanks again for everybody turning up, and Paul for pinch hitting again. Appreciate that. And everybody that's watching and listening out there on the interweb, thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you again next week here at Swinging from the Hips. But in the meantime, make sure you're tuning into Paul at 7 o'clock in the mornings for your daily catch up of what's happening in sport. And obviously, there was some exciting news about how Team New Zealand came from behind twice today in the sports news tomorrow. And then, of course, tomorrow night there will be a good bit of chat and driving more on the rugby with the rugby. And I'm guessing, hopefully, you might have Bower on there, and he might actually get him to talk about referees.
Well,
No, he won't want to do that.
No.
And then it's just like Wednesday nights is the league show. Is it, Paul? Or is it the next show?
So, folks, quickly. So, yes, Monday evenings at 8 p.m. We've got the Swing from the Hip show, cricket show. Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. is the Driving More show, our rugby show. Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. is our Standoff, which is the league show, followed by the Knicks newsletter at 9 p.m. our football show, A-League show. Thursday evenings at 8 p.m. we preview all the Super Rugby games for the weekend. Straight after the final whistle of the New Zealand games, we try and have a bit of a post-match reaction. But we wrap it all up at 8 p.m. on Sunday with the Super Rugby review show. And as Ashwin said, the morning sports briefing, your best way to start the day up to speed with all the important sports news, is at 7 a.m. every single morning.